So last month here at CLF, you, not me, but you, asked the question, what's love got to do with it? That was the exploration all last month. What's love got to do with it? And we had 4 beautiful, wonderful speakers answer that question in their own way. And the bottom line is, if we were going to answer that with one sentence, what does love have to do with it? That answer could be, it has everything to do with it, right? Everything. I decided that we would just kind of play with that question, what's love got to do with it? And this month, the month of St. Patrick's Day, ask the question, what does luck have to do with it? So the same sentence, change one word. What does luck have to do with it? And our answer could actually be the same in that it's the same sentence with one word changed. The answer to what does love have to do with it is everything. The answer to what does luck have to do with it might be nothing. Just a few of you thought that. The rest of you are like, lots. It has lots. Nothing. Luck has nothing to do with anything. And yet our world, a lot of people in this world, think it does. And we even, subtly, perhaps, think it does. Think of all of the phrases that have luck in them. And we use them all the time. Things like, the luck of the draw. Oh, this must be my lucky day. Or conversely, this must not be my lucky day. How about he got a lucky break? Or thank my lucky stars. What else? Give me some more. I'm rusty. I need help. What's luck of the Irish? Good luck. Yes. How often do we say, well, good luck with that? Beginner's luck.
If it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all.
If it wasn't for bad luck, I'd have no luck at all. Right, oh, it's got to have this on it. Right, exactly. Rotten luck? What else? Don't push your luck, right? All these phrases and terms about luck. Now here's a luck trivia question. All right, and yes, you know what? I received this chocolate gift in first service, but I'm really doing my best not to eat. I spent like 2 months eating chocolate, and I just don't eat any. He doesn't know that, but I did. He does know that, right? Right. So we're going to give this away. Who can fill in this blank on a luck? Now, if you're in first service, I'm sorry, you don't get to say this. It doesn't count. So lucky in blank. No, let me finish. Lucky in blank, unlucky in love. That's the phrase. Lucky in blank, unlucky in love. Who said cards? Cards. Okay, stand up. Duck. Passing it is no fun. Where's the fun in passing it? Here we go. You got to fight Beverly for it there, I think. All right. Thank you, Dave. Yes, the phrase actually is lucky in cards, unlucky in love. Or it could be lucky in love, unlucky in cards, which explains everything for me about why I'm such a lousy card player. So I get that. Another one is you really lucked out. You really lucked out on that. Either something great happened that you didn't have any control over, or you avoided some big disaster. Today we're going to look at how to luck out, quote unquote, how to luck out. But before we do, and there is some scientific research, by the way, that I'm going to be sharing with you that talks about the luck factor. But before we do that, I want to lay a spiritual foundation underneath everything we talk about this month. So this is our spiritual grounding that will then inform everything else that we talked about. So the spiritual grounding comes from a statement that a really wise person once made. Really wise guy. Not a wise guy, but a wise guy. You get the difference, right? You may have heard this before. You may know who said it. He said, "Be in this world, but of this." Oh, see, you know that. Be in this world, but not of this world. Who said that? Thank you, thank you. Master Teacher Jesus said that. Be in this world, but not of this world. So what did he mean by that? Well, we can't go back and ask him. We can't ask him what did he mean by that. But looking at the body of his work and his teachings, I'm going to give you my educated guess of what he meant by that. So being in this world, to me, says, we have to acknowledge and realize and live in this physical world, because that's the world we live in. We, until we evolve and no longer need to live in a physical world, but we're not there yet, we live in a physical world with its physical experience, its challenges, its heartbreaks, its joys, its excitements, its successes, its failures, all of that. And in this physical world, there is polarity, duality in this physical world. So there is, just look, there is up and down, right? There is right and left. There is in and out. There is happiness, there is sadness. There is success, there is failure. There is abundance, there's lack. There's even life and death. That list could go on and on. In the physical world that we are in, there is that pulling. And I think what this means is we need to be in that. We need to fully be present for it. We need to be present for what is up in our world. Not do what we can do sometimes in spiritual studies is what we call a spiritual bypass. Do you know what a spiritual bypass is? Okay, so some of you yes, others of you no. Like, what? She's talking about. So here is a spiritual bypass. Kind of put an S or an I in that, didn't I? Bypass. Here's a spiritual bypass according to Michele. A spiritual bypass is saying it's all good because it's all God when it really just sucks. Because things sometimes do just really suck, don't they? I mean, you lose a loved one and your heart hurts. There's another school shooting in our country which happened while I was gone, and our hearts hurt for that. We have a failure in business, and our heart hurts over that, and we feel defeated. We have a physical challenge, and we feel discouraged. I mean, those are human things that happen. And I think Jesus is telling us that you just need to be with that. You need to feel that. You need to be present for it and not try to bypass it. But that's not the end of his statement. That's only the first half. Be ye in this world, but not of this world. What does it mean to not be of this world? Well, I think that means that in the midst of all that's going on, whatever this right and wrong, up and down, black and white. Oh, I forgot one I said in first service. Republicans and Democrats, right? We have all that, right? We got all that. In the middle of all that, there is something that is not of this world. There's something greater. There's something bigger. There's something eternal that we are also part of and connected with. So not being of this world means we recognize that there is more than this world. And we're going to call that moreness God. You can call it whatever you want. Spirit, source, life, river of life. I had somebody once want to refer to God as river of life. Go for it. Whatever. Henry. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But there's something bigger. And this something bigger is the changeless within the middle of the change. This something bigger is the abundance in the middle of the appearance of lack. This something else is life, even in the face of human death. That's what this something bigger is. And I feel very lucky to know this. Not everybody knows this. A lot of people just live that first part, be ye in this world. That's what a lot of people are, just in this world, and think luck is swinging them around. But I choose, and I know all of us here recognize the need to be in the world, but we have something higher than we are not completely of this world. So let me give you an analogy for this that I think is really a powerful analogy. If you think about a door jamb, and on one side of that door jamb, the door is attached, right, with the hinges. That door can swing. Some doors swing both ways in and out. It can swing. It can swing a little bit. It can swing a lot. It can swing gently. It can swing violently, right? But what is the door jamb doing? It is a solid, stable, immovable center. The door swinging, this is being in the world. The door of the world swings. But not being of the world is being that pillar that is the door jamb. And we are that. We are that pillar, and we live as it. Does that make sense? I like to check in and see. So, thank you. So that's going to be our foundation for all of our work this month when we talk about luck and the scientific experiment that was done a number of years ago in the late 90s, but it lasted over 10 years. That's a diligent scientist who wants to do an experiment that lasts 10 years. He had thousands of volunteers who participated and many, many ways that he did this, and came to some conclusions that he wrote up in a book called The Luck Factor. It's Dr. Richard Weissman is the name of the scientist who did this. And through a lot of different ways, I won't go into the details about how he did it, but one of the ways was that he asked questionnaires to people. And based on their answers, which of course there wasn't anything about luck in the questions, but they were able to discern from the questions people who thought themselves to be lucky or not, those who had a lucky view of life and those who didn't. Their lives were very different, very different. And what he determined through this science was that there are 4 attributes of people who consider themselves lucky and then have luck happen in their lives. And we're going to talk this month about those 4 attributes. Today, we're going to talk about the attribute of how to luck out. How do we luck out? So what this attitude is specifically is that people who consider themselves lucky always expect good fortune. They expect good fortune. Now, I want to say again that what I said at the very beginning, luck has nothing to do with it. It's not luck. Ernest Holmes, I love, says, we are not dependent upon chance, but upon the law. Or he writes, both in the Science of My textbook, I don't have the page number, sorry. We are living in an intelligent universe which responds to our mental states. To the extent that we learn to control these mental states, we shall automatically control our environment. So it has nothing to do with luck, although I'm going to use the word luck and lucky and unlucky and a lot because that's the research. So that's the language of it. I don't want to do this every time because that's really annoying. So, but I want you to put those air quotes around lucky every time I say it. It is we are working in harmony with the law. That's luck. So the first attribute of people who work in harmony with the law, whether they know it or not, you don't have to know this to work in harmony or disharmony with the law. The first one is that they expect good fortune. So my most favorite, before I tell you that story, an aside. This was a download in first service. I have to say it here too. So they expect good fortune. Now that word expect, it has a lot of stuff around it. What I'm not saying is to expect someone, particularly spouse, partner, even friend, boss, to behave in a certain way. I do not want you to go home to your partner who isn't here today and say, my minister tells me that I should expect you to shape up. No. Having expectations of other people is getting our nose into their business and setting us up for not healthy. So this is not what I'm talking about. Expecting our own good fortune, expecting our future, which may be now, to be good. That's what I mean by expectations in this conversation. Are we clear about that? Right, don't anybody go home, and I don't want any partner calling me going, you told my spouse that. No, I didn't. So I love this story about expectations, and you've heard it, I've told it before, but it has to be told here today. And it's the story of the little town in Texas that had never had alcohol in the town. It was a dry town. And a businessman came into town and thought, oh my gosh, this is a gold mine. I could open up a tavern here and I would be rich in an instant because these people, I'm sure, are thirsty. And so he decides, he gets the permits that he needs, and he starts building a tavern. And as soon as the local church realizes that that's what's happening, that a tavern, a bar, is being built in their dry town, they are just crazy with upset. And they have prayer meetings, prayer vigils to not have this bar come into their town. They're praying vehemently about it. And then one day, a Texas storm whips up, and it's crazy, and the lightning is, and don't you know, lightning bolt strikes down that building that's being built, and it burns it to the ground. Tavern owner, not a happy guy. He decides he's going to sue the church for burning down his building, causing it. So he files a suit. The church hires their lawyers. They respond with, "We had nothing to do with it. We weren't there. We didn't touch it. It was an act of God." The judge takes all the documents, the pleadings, and he brings the parties in, and he says to them, I don't know how I'm going to rule on this, but I do know one thing. It's very obvious to me one thing. And then they say, what is it? He says, well, the tavern owner believes a whole lot more in prayer than the churchgoers do. The question is, what are you expecting when you pray? Really, if you got really honest, what are you expecting when you have prayer done for you? What are you expecting for your life? I know some of us grew up, and I don't like, this isn't to blame our parents, but a lot of the way we think about life comes from what we learned, and a lot of us learned, don't expect too much. Don't expect too much, because then you won't be disappointed. How many of us were taught that? Don't expect too much because you don't want to be disappointed. So keep your expectations low, and then you'll be happy. Well, guess what? It doesn't work that way. I love this statement from Eric Butterworth, who was a Unity minister, wrote many, many, many fantastic books. Spiritual Economics is one of his great books. He wrote this: "You do not receive what you want, or even what you pray for. You receive what you expect." Most of us expect so little. Most of us go through life holding a small tin cup under the Niagara Falls of God's plenty. This manifests as a string-saving, make-do, can't-afford-it consciousness. It is marginal living at best. We prepare for problems and are rarely disappointed. We are in tune with the indefinite instead of the infinite. I love that. We are in tune with the indefinite instead of with the infinite. We are practicing the absence instead of the presence of God. So we are practicing the presence of God, which is the abundant flow of life, of love, of joy, of peace, of prosperity, when we expect that in our lives. And we don't let whatever the condition is right now be like that swinging door and swing us off course. We stay like the door jamb, solid in that expectation. So now you're ready to just go a little deeper in that? Because here's the deal. How many times do you think, I did expect that. I did have in this healthy way, I did have an expectation of X, Y, Z. And dagnabbit, it didn't happen. I would usually use a different word, but don't usually say dagnabbit. That's not one of really that much in my vocabulary, but but there it was. Woo! It didn't happen. Now, you don't have to answer if that's ever happened to you, but I suspect it has. And we get really disappointed. Huh? And we even start to wonder sometimes, well, you say this law automatically works on our expectations, and I expected this and it didn't happen, so does that mean the law doesn't work? We start to question. And that can be a big rabbit hole we can go down and get lost in that. What is up with that? Well, I think there is something deeper than expectation. Although the scientific research put it in those words. Those who consider themselves lucky and have lucky lives expect good fortune. But if I were going to go back and tweak that experiment, as I like to tweak everything, I would want to look at something even deeper than a mental expectancy. And I want to read a quote from Ernest Holmes that gets to it. And you'll hear the word in it in a minute. This is 176. You're welcome. Science in my textbook. One who is always distraught cannot give a good treatment, and that's prayer. For those of you new to this, that's prayer. One who is always distraught cannot give a good treatment for peace. So there must not only be an image in the mind of the one who is giving the prayer, but there must be an appreciation of what that image means before the image can reflect itself out there in the world. In other words, it is a word. It is just a word and not an embodiment. There's our key word. There is a great difference between the two. There's a great difference between having an expectation and saying it and even thinking it and being an embodiment of that which we desire to create or be or do or have in our lives. Excuse me. One of the first, and I say this all the time, but one of the first passages I learned out of the Science Mind textbook on the bottom of page 29, to learn how to think is to learn how to live. For our thoughts go into a medium which is infinite in its ability to do and to be. By thinking, we can bring into our experience that which we desire, so long as we think correctly and become. What else? What is it? Do you know? And become, who remembers? Okay, nobody. Good. It's all right. A living embodiment of our words. A living embodiment of it. So I want to give you a quick example of this in my life and in our life as a community. And when Spirit said, okay, share that, I'm like, no. Do you ever argue with God? No, not that. Don't make me do that. And I argued for a bit with that voice within me that knows, because I'm like, no, don't, it may sound like ego or blah, blah, blah. I just want to share this with you. It's an awareness I have had. Excuse me. And it involves us. So I say this, I set it up also with, I know that I'm not the sole influencer in what happens around here. I do understand, I know that. I'm also the leader of this community. So what is happening for me in consciousness does have an effect on what happens to us as a full spiritual community. This relates to our workshop that was supposed to happen yesterday with Neil Donald Walsh. And we canceled it, and I was involved, even though I was on sabbatical, I was involved in having a conversation about, does it make sense to cancel that financially for us? And it did, because we did not sell enough tickets. Now that, to be honest with you, shocked the holy heck out of me, because I expected it to completely sell out. This is a #1 best-selling author. He's written 4 Conversations with God books and many, many other books. He sells out here and there. I fully expected him to sell out and we would have a waiting list. I had that expectation. Sometimes things for us, don't happen, they only happen in hindsight, right? They happen in hindsight. You get it in hindsight. You can't do anything about the thing that gave you that lesson. You can't change that, but it's good to have the hindsight because then it helps us move forward. So as I was reflecting upon what in the heck happened, why did we have to cancel this? Why did we not sell enough tickets in here and out there in the world? I started thinking about my embodiment of him coming here and my embodiment of Greg Braden coming here. They were very different. They were very different. For those of you who are new and like, who's Greg Braden? What's that all about? A couple years ago, for 15 years, I had on my heart to bring this amazing speaker, scientist, man who blends spirituality and science here. He comes with a big price tag. We had never had a speaker of that caliber here before, and made the commitment to spend on him what we made the commitment to spend. But I tell you, you know this, every soul, every fiber, every cell in my being was vibrating with enthusiasm and excitement and passion for having him here. And even though in the world of form we had no idea if anyone would come, we didn't know if we'd sell tickets, I knew. I'm like, oh no, I know at the deepest place in me. And I had an excitement and enthusiasm for it that I know got probably boring for you because I talked about it so much. But we filled the room. We filled the room with people from here. People came from out of town to be here. And then he wanted to come back. He came back. We filled the room again. Again. I think about how I felt about that in the living embodiment of having him here for me, how that felt, and my expectation that Walsh would absolutely sell out. I have to be honest with you. I was glad he was coming. I was excited he was coming. I thought it would be a great thing for our community to have him here, but I did not have that level of, for him. I didn't. I just didn't. And I look it back and go, oh boy. So to the extent that I was responsible for that not going, I apologize. Just because I want to say that, and I know I'm not fully responsible for it. But I came to that awareness that our embodiment impacts what happens in our world, and it ripples out. So my friends, here's the deal. If you're thinking, oh, that's great, Michele, how do I get an embodiment when I'm not even sure? I mean, I'm scared, and I have a hard enough time just living in the belief and the acceptance. Now you're telling me I have to fully embody it. How do I do that? I have an answer to that too. Go get prayer. But don't get prayer for that thing to happen. Get prayer for you to embody the thing, for you to become the thing. And then when you become it, when you embody it, it just comes to you, boom, bada bing, ba boom, like that. With ease, with grace, with no pulling, with no angst, it just lands in you. So that's how I would tweak the first attitude of lucky people. They don't just expect good fortune. They embody their good fortune. And I want to leave you with a final little story about the ripple effect of embodying something. So it's a story of a teacher, like 8th grade teacher. And it's the first, and I have teachers out here, so you guys will like this story. It's the first day of class, and this teacher's looking through her roster and the kids' names, and next to the kids' names are numbers, like 143, 152, 149, 146. And she thinks, oh my gosh, I have got a classroom of geniuses. Because these are their IQs. I have never had a classroom of geniuses. This is going to be the best year ever. I am so excited to work with kids at this level. Oh my gosh, what we're going to do this semester. And so everything about her, she has embodied the idea that she is working with a group of geniuses. So every lesson plan is based on genius kids. Every test is based on everything she does, every activity based on genius kids. End of the year comes, she turns in her grades. The principal comes to her and says, what the heck did you do in this classroom? She goes, what do you mean? What do you mean? Every one of your students got A's and just a couple of B's. What did you do? She goes, what do you mean, what did I do? It was easy. I had a group of geniuses. I mean, how hard is that to get A's with a group of geniuses? He said, what are you talking about? You don't have a bunch of geniuses in your class. She goes, yes, I did. He said, no, you didn't. You, in fact, I gave you, because you're such a good teacher, I gave you like the worst kids, because I knew you could work with them. You got the worst of the worst. She said, what are you talking about? I know you gave me geniuses. He said, how do you think I gave you geniuses? Because next to their names were their IQs, 143, 150. He goes, those weren't their IQs. Those were their locker numbers. It's all in what you embody. Let's pray. Yeah. So let's take a deep breath. Breathe in this joy. Open ourselves up. Open our hearts, our minds, the fullness of who we are. To embody the idea of this changeless energy that is at the heart of all. God, presence, life. At the center and the circumference of everything. Changeless good, changeless abundance, changeless wholeness, changeless peace, changeless love. Just breathe that in for a moment. Bring it into your heart. Bring it into your mind. Breathe it down into your solar plexus. that one presence and power that is here. And it is the door jamb of our example of earlier. It is solid, it is firm, immovable. And because it is the center and circumference of everything, it is the center and circumference of each of us. We are that. It is us. The life of God, the love of God, the abundance of God, the wholeness of God manifests itself as us, as me, as each and every one of us sitting in this room, listening to this, watching this, being impacted by the vibration of this. Everyone who doesn't even know us is an expression of that which is changeless. So take a deep breath and embody that a little bit deeper than before. Bring it into your mind, bring it into your heart, bring it into your solar plexus. Align with that idea. And in this embodiment of that truth, I speak my word. And I speak my word to activate the law for the highest good of each and every one of us. And so I do not speak my word for the manifestation of this or that, but rather for the embodiment of this or that for each of us. Whatever it is on our hearts that is up for us now, I affirm that we each become that which it is. So if it is love that we're looking more for, or a healing in a relationship, I accept and know that we become an embodiment of love. If it is greater financial flow, I accept that we become an embodiment of God's financial good and abundant flow of life. If it is for a healing in our body, I accept and know an embodiment of wholeness. And in that, the ways of the world shift and change and move to match that embodiment. So I celebrate that, and I'm grateful for that. I call it good, so very good. And in faith and in trust and in truth, I release this prayer. I let it go. I let it be. And together we say, and so it is. Amen.